Hello, Star Trek fans. This is ReBingeIt, and welcome to our Star Trek Prodigy podcast. My name is James.
And my name is Kim, and we are watching and overanalyzing each episode of Star Trek Prodigy like true Star Trek geeks. Hit it! Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 2, Episodes 4 and 5 of Star Trek Prodigy. Episode 5 is Observer's Paradox, and Episode 6 is Imposter Syndrome. I have the notes for the first one, and James has the notes for the second one.
Yes, I do.
Before we get going here, do you have anything to say about last week's episode? Or 2 weeks ago? Whenever the last Prodigy podcast was?
No, I think the quality of the Prodigy episodes remain consistently high, in line with the first season.
Yeah, I agree.
The visuals, I think, are just stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. And the color palette is amazing.
Yeah, heavy on the purple, so yeah. I always like that. Well, this episode, I believe, will be released on the last day of Comic-Con. So that is the day we may or may not see the Prodigy panel.
Yes.
We'll see.
Which isn't in Hall H, is it?
No. So we might have a chance of getting into it. But by the time this comes out, that'll be over. So
the main Star Trek stuff is in Hall H, and this isn't. This is like the red-headed stepchild of Star Trek, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, all of Star Trek by Paramount is in Hall H, and then there's this one, which is the best show they have. What a bunch of morons.
Netflix needs to pick this up.
As a reminder, if you want to send us feedback, you can send us an email at RebingeIt@gmail.com, or we are on the socials at RebingeIt. You can also put your feedback in the designated posting on Facebook for feedback for the episode. Or, like we said before, you can just tune in and listen, which is what most people do. It's up to you. And the last thing I'll say before we start is that we've lightened up a bit on the detail of what's happening in each episode. We realized we fell into the trap of what we do on the other pod. So we've lightened up a bit because we recognize that you're likely to have just watched these episodes, so you don't need all the details.
I like to describe a lot. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, it also leads to our discussions, because we don't overplan the discussion. We overplan the detail, but we've backed off a bit on the detail.
That's a theory.
Yeah, well, let's see how it goes. In the opening of Observer's Paradox, Janeway and her senior staff are interviewing the young crew to try and understand what happened with the Infinity. Everyone is pretty much themselves, and it doesn't lead to very many answers, of course. The funniest one is maybe Rok-Tahk, who's really nervous and drinking water, and she's worried this is going to go on her permanent record.
Rok-Tahk's awesome.
It's so cute.
Murf is very animated during this scene.
Yeah, they interview Murf, but they can't understand anything he says, so I don't know why they're bothering to talk to him. But he doesn't seem to be very good at charades, because nobody understands what all of his arm flailing means.
Yeah. I mean, he seems to be able to understand other people, so maybe they should get him a really good book on charades. Find a data tape with how to play charades.
Well, yeah, because he's able to morph into other shapes, so, he'd be really good at charades.
Yeah.
I do like in the scene that the doctor says he has a headache even though he doesn't have a head. That's pretty funny.
Is this where he makes the Lower Decks reference?
Yes, where he says he hasn't seen a crew this dysfunctional since the Cerritos. That really made James laugh.
I love Lower Decks. Lower Decks is some of my favorite Star Trek.
But when they realize they haven't figured anything out, Janeway does say that we all share the blame. Yeah. And, she's not wrong because this was a failure in leadership. We still don't even really understand why the Prodigy crew is on this mission, or certainly why they had access to absolutely everything on the ship, including the Infinity.
I think because of what Picard's up to, everybody had to go this time.
Even people who aren't in Starfleet. Janeway wants the doctor to keep the kids out of trouble, and everyone else is to do some scans and figure out their predicament. She really wants to figure out who the invisible entity is that's been helping.
Yes.
Elsewhere, the young crew is busy complaining about having restricted access. And while they're all sitting around a table chatting, Murf is grabbing things off their plates to create an image of something on the floor. I noticed that the food in this version of Star Trek looks a lot better than the food in any of the older versions of Star Trek, because it was usually just like melon on a plate or things that didn't look like food. Remember how many times we see them eating melon? Nobody eats that much melon.
That was always the thing in Deep Space Nine. They talked about how good the food was, but all we ever saw was melon and maybe cheese if you were lucky.
Yeah. We do have a little moment of high school here when Majel isn't willing to join the crew and she goes to the Nova Squad table. It's like, come on. Dal reveals that he's still optimistic that the mess they created can be fixed. Eventually, Murph gets their attention and they look at the thing that he's created on the floor, and it's kind of a swirly image that he has built with their food. It's like a spiral that has some spots and some lines in it.
Yeah.
Gwen says she's seen that before when she was in the pit in the fight to death with the Vindicator.
Yep.
When she heard the mysterious voice, she saw that same image.
Yeah, and Kim stopped the recording and is like, okay, where is that from? I didn't get it initially.
Well, the only reason I got it was because we just saw this episode. So
makes it even worse.
I mean, yeah. So we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. So now they realize that the mysterious entity that's been helping them has been communicating with Murph, and this is a challenge because none of them understand what Murph says.
Why do you pick Murph?
Yeah, I don't know, because Jankum says none of us speak Murf-ese.
Yes. It seems like a poor choice.
Well, I have a theory about that
that
we'll get to later. The doctor starts watching the crew closely now, following them everywhere, not letting them have private conversations.
Yeah.
Zero eventually volunteers to distract the doctor by asking him about the holo novel he's been writing, which, of course, he wants to talk about nonstop.
The doctor is great here. The character's literally like he's just been straight transported from Voyager. All those same weird foibles that they built into him over time.
Yes, including an ego.
Oh, yes.
Which is quite funny.
His writing of novels and his love of opera.
Yes. Rok again expresses her desire to stay out of any crazy plans, but you know that's not going to last.
Rok really doesn't want to be part of the crazy. It's just she's on the edge of this vortex, and it doesn't matter. She's going to get pulled in. Yeah,
she values her time working with Starfleet because I think she's the one who most wants to be in it and is ready to be a part of it. But she also really likes her friends and wants to help them. So she's got some conflicts.
Yeah.
Dal and Gwen are searching for answers on this swirly image. Here's where I'll say that we just recently watched the Voyager episode Tattoo, and we had a discussion about the mistake the Voyager producers made at the time in hiring a charlatan as their Native American consultant. And now, in this episode of Prodigy, we learn that the spiral Murph has created is very similar to the drawing the Voyager crew found on a moon in the Delta Quadrant. Yeah. And that symbol turned out to be the symbol drawn by the Rubber Tree people as a symbol of healing, or of healing the land when they had somehow damaged or disturbed it. And these were the ancestors of Chakotay's family's tribe.
Yeah.
And we also see on the screen, they actually put the words Chamuzi right up on the screen as the name of the symbol. And this whole thing was a surprise to me, as I never expected to hear that phrase again.
Right.
Chakotay's dad in that episode taught him that his tribe descended from the Sky People, who Chakotay learns were actually aliens from the Delta Quadrant that came to Earth and somehow imparted their own DNA into some people that they found.
Yep.
And then those people were the actual ancestors of Chakotay's tribe.
Basically messed with human DNA and then were upset that the race they genetically modified didn't go on to become the dominant race on the planet.
Yeah, it's a wild episode.
It's really wild. Plus, we also see that Chakotay's dad is a huge Indiana Jones fan.
With his hat. It's a crazy thing to reference here, considering the ridiculous background of it on Voyager.
Yeah.
The one thing they do differently here is this show attributes the symbol to the Omotep and Nakaro people, who a quick Google search reveals are people indigenous to Nicaragua and Costa Rica.
Uh-huh.
And that's more info than the Tattoo episode ever gave us. They just kept talking about the jungle.
Hey.
But regardless of all this detail, we ultimately figure out the symbol Murph drew is somehow connected to Chakotay.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what it could be. Down in the hangar, Antanas uses the old-time Star Trek phrase, some kind of, when telling Janeway the scans are indicating some kind of cascading photovoltaic loop. Whatever that means, Janeway wonders if the mysterious entity is Chakotay somehow. Jerky Jellicoe calls and tells them they have to close the wormhole, continuing the long line of admirals who are jerks.
Oh, yeah. Jellicoe is their god.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Murph seems to be annoyed that everyone is guessing Chakotay is the person that he's been talking to, because he keeps waving his arms and shaking his head, and he puts his hand on his head even, but no one else picks up on it.
Yeah.
So everyone ends up in cetacean ops with Rok-Tahk, of course, who wants to stay out of trouble but can't. And she does eventually have the idea that maybe Murph would be better understood underwater like the whales.
Yeah.
So Rok and Murf jump into the tank and sink to the bottom. And I wondered, how did Rok get out of there in the end? I hope there's a drain or something at the bottom.
Yeah, how does she climb out?
Yeah.
Hopefully there's a ladder.
Well, Murf, it's easy for him because he grows some fish parts.
Yeah.
He actually even grows a tail to help him swim around. I did wonder in this moment if that would be permanent or temporary, and then we saw the next episode and he was back to himself. So I guess he's able to add things that he needs.
Yeah, he's very flexible.
I did think, too, at one point in the scene when he's afraid of the whale, and when he swims up to the whale and he looks a little bit like a plankton, I did think maybe the whale would just eat him. But luckily, that's not what happened.
The whale says, "Thanks for the tasty gummies, suckers." Whales have been eating these things for millennia.
That would have been funny. In Janeway's ready room, now we see that she has some things on display on a shelf. I'm sure there are lots of Easter eggs in there.
Yeah.
And the things that I could pick up on, there's a giant spider in a frame, which I'm sure is from that episode of Voyager where she's Arachnia in the holodeck thing. There's also a phaser in her comm badge from Voyager.
Yep.
Of course, nobody loves a phaser more than Janeway.
Yeah, if she could beam down and shoot things, she was right there.
There's also a picture of her with the dog, and she's got that picture at least in the first couple of seasons of Voyager, of her and Mark, who she left behind, and the dog. I wondered if she cut Mark out of this picture or if this is a whole new dog.
It's a new dog.
All right. Well, anyway, there's some other things on there too, but she picks up a rock that has the Chalmuzi symbol on it, and then she has a little flashback remembering Chakotay giving it to her. So now she gives the fire order, and we destroy the wormhole, and I thought, this is really depressing for her. Forced to destroy the wormhole and, potentially lose Chakotay, who she's been looking for forever.
Right.
I mean, it's okay with me. I have other friends. I don't need Chakotay. I was surprised. We're only in episode 5 and we already closed the wormhole. It's sort of keeping with how quickly this show moves.
Oh, yeah. They don't have the time, and these are pretty compact episodes. They cram so much in. I think this is something that makes Prodigy kind of unique in Star Trek, of there is so much crammed into each episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in Cetacean Ops, the whale does manage to understand Murf.
Yep.
And we figure out that he's saying a phrase. Well, he's actually spelling it, which is "find me." And there's also a string of numbers, which Gwen figures out she's supposed to enter those numbers into the thing that's keeping her in this timeline, the thing that the doctor attached to her arm. Everyone is worried because she was strictly told not to mess with that device, but she does it, and she sort of ends up flying through space.
Yeah.
This made me think again of the Traveler episode of TNG. I went and watched it last night to see if it looked like that. And I mean, it kind of does, but it also just looks like she's flying through space. And eventually she sees the spiral that they've been chasing. She sees it as a system in space rather than the, Chalmuzi symbol. But how would she be able to fly through space like this? Because when she entered those numbers, her physical body was moved or taken to wherever she went. And so she can't fly through space.
Yes, and it's cold.
So where did she
there's
go?
No atmosphere. So
yeah.
Well, maybe the person who is behind all of this basically arranged some kind of atmospheric bubble so she was able to survive. Or she's actually out of phase. So she's seeing this, but her actual physical form isn't there.
But it has to be somewhere. Well, maybe it doesn't, if she's phasing in and out of the realities.
Yes.
Okay, I'll allow that.
It's no worse than how can Geordi stand on a floor while he's out of phase with the rest of the ship.
Oh, yeah, well, don't ask too many questions. When she gets back to her crew, she says the spiral is a map, and she knows where to find Chakotay.
Yes.
The end.
Wow. This show loves a good cliffhanger.
Yeah, it really does. And at least now we have the next episode. We can go and watch it.
Yes.
So we did just move right to the next episode.
Moving on to the next episode.
Yes.
Imposter Syndrome. We open with Dal being chased through Voyager by the rest of the crew, and not in a fun way.
Yeah.
Dal protests, saying his real friends wouldn't do this. And then we get that old storytelling trick of an abrupt cut and a scene saying 24 hours earlier. Off to the holodeck, where the doctor finds the young crew. He assumes that because they're laughing, they're causing trouble. But Dal tells him they are studying astrometrics. And for some reason, the doctor believes this and leaves.
Yeah.
Of course, we see this is not what they're doing. They're actually trying to find the spiral system that Gwen saw in the previous episode. Rok is as upbeat as ever, summarizing, all they need to do is find the protostar, find Chakotay, and get the protostar to Tars Lamora. Easy.
Yeah, I really like how they think it'll be super easy to find Chakotay and the protostar and get it to Tars Lamora, ignoring the fact that they have to get it there in the past.
In the past.
It's no good to them there now.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just get it there, you have to get it there at a particular time point.
Exactly.
Wow.
There's so much timey-wimey stuff on this show. It kind of reminds me of on Deep Space Nine how they could go to the mirror universe like anytime. It was no big deal.
You just plug that thing into the transporter and you're there.
It's the same thing here. Oh, we need a time machine? No problem.
I've come to a conclusion here. Rok is actually the anti-Vulcan. Remember how Mr. Tuvok, as the classic Vulcan, anytime something was going to look positive or they had a positive plan, Tuvok was Mr. Downer.
Oh, yeah.
That will never work because Rok is the inverse. Rok is the, okay, I got a plan. This is going to work. It'll be easy. We'll fix the timeline.
Everything will be great.
Yeah, exactly. Zero suggests that they use the Infinity to find Chakotay, but Rok very wisely suggests that they ask Janeway for help. But we know that's not going to happen.
No.
Dal does not like that plan, and he has lots of reasons why it won't work. His plan is to borrow the Infinity and says that it's better to ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
I know this is something people say all the time, but I don't know. I can't live that way. And also, I don't think it's always true. Sometimes asking for forgiveness gets you fired. But Dal lives his entire life this way.
I have worked with people who live their life like that.
Oh, me too, yeah.
Yeah. It's also funny how I think it's Rok dresses Dal down about, borrowing a ship again.
Yeah. It's a pattern, I think she says.
Yeah. So, even though it seems like a bad idea, this is the plan they're going to go with. Jankum and Zero begin working on an idea to make hologram versions of themselves. So when they leave the ship, no one will know they're gone. It's good to see that the others are getting the idea of planning before they actually start putting things into motion.
Yeah, it is a nice change of pace. We should probably admit here that we accidentally skipped this episode and watched the next episode, and we were wondering, where the heck did these holograms come from? How did they get off the ship without anybody knowing? What are they doing with the Infinity? We just thought, how strange that we jumped to that.
Numbers are hard.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I just pressed next episode on Netflix, and I don't know why it skipped.
We're introduced to these hologram versions, but they're a bit glitchy. Rok volunteers to look at the code, and Dal is like, yeah, fix it, and we'll try and figure out how to get to the Infinity. This does actually seem like good planning from Dal, because Rok's the one you want working on technical stuff.
Yeah.
While he goes and does something completely foolhardy.
Yeah. Sounds like season 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Dal, Gwyn, and Murf are now trying to hatch a plan to borrow the Infinity, but there's a lot of activity in the hangar, so they can't sneak in. Gwyn reveals she is starting to pick up some of Murf's words, but she really hasn't quite got the hang of it, saying she wasn't sure whether Murf said yes or Talaxian burrito. So it's a work in progress, I think.
Yeah, not quite the same things.
Their planning is disturbed by antennas, and he has found Dal's tricorder on the Infinity, giving it back to him, telling the group that the Infinity is scheduled for destruction. Starfleet has ordered them to erase all evidence of their classified mission, especially the existence of a cloaked ship, which violates Federation treaties. Dal says, why destroy it? Just cloak it. No one will know the difference. I like the way Dal thinks at times.
I think I said the same thing, like, yeah, just cloak it. It's invisible.
This makes antennas really laugh, and the others awkwardly laugh with him.
Yeah, it's like, ha 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 ha.
The plan is to launch the Infinity into a blue sun at 800 hours. I think we need to address the fact that the line was, I believe, this cloaked ship violates at least 3 Federation treaties.
Yes.
Lots of the crew seem to be aware of this ship. Do they not know about the cloak? This seems to be awfully out in the open for a clandestine mission.
It's possible they don't know about the cloak. Although then, how are they going to explain that they're shooting it into the sun?
Yeah.
This whole thing is a bit funny with this private mission that they're doing on this giant ship that has 800 people on it. It's like these things don't really go together. Because now, if you're really going to do a secret mission, then that door should be locked. We know it's not locked because the young crew just walked right up to it and it was wide open and there were people in there like walking in and out with crates, or I guess just walking out. So, yeah, I don't quite understand the secrecy of the secret mission.
Right. It's not very secret. Plus, isn't this the kind of thing you'd want Section 31 to be carrying out?
Yeah, you wouldn't want to just involve the normal Starfleety people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, where's Giorgio to fix up this mission?
She's working on her next empire.
Yeah.
Dal realizes this is going to be the perfect solution. While everyone thinks the ship is destroyed, they'll just sneak onto it, enable the cloak, and escape unnoticed.
And they have every reason to believe this will work because they've been able to just do whatever the hell they want all the time. So it shouldn't be a problem. No sweat.
I'm not sure if this is a positive or negative trait of Dal. He sees things in such a straightforward way. It's almost like going back to that comment about Rok, of just very positive. Dal is like a real straight line thinker. Overanalysis. Perhaps this is a side effect of the Klingon DNA in his makeup. To paraphrase Mr. Worf, when we are victorious, they will sing songs in our honor.
Yeah, well, he does have that little bit of cockiness. And I think, too, he gained a lot of confidence when they were all working together to solve problems. Because whatever gaps, like if he didn't understand the science, Rok would understand the science.
Yeah.
So maybe his confidence has just grown.
Maybe that's actually a bigger part of this season than season 1. We're seeing their skill sets complement each other, that they truly are becoming a crew in their own right.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a big part of it. But remember in episode 1, Dal gets onto, what was it that they were like pulling up out of the mining planet? And he just like gets onto it and he's just reaching for the stars. Like he's pointing up to the sky because now he's...
Yeah, it's like the ore elevator.
Because Gwen even asked him, what was your plan when you got up there? And he was like, I don't know. I was going to go to the stars. So, that's kind of similar. He's just like, oh, yeah, no problem. We'll just get the ship. Boom, we'll cloak it. Nobody will ever notice.
At least now he has the others to rely on for actually filling in the bits of the plan beyond.
Right.
Get the ship.
Yeah, because that first plan of his did not work, but it seems to work more frequently now when he's got support.
Quick check on Rok's progress with the holograms, and we find that she has recreated the Protostar's bridge because it helps her think.
No, that was so cute.
It was. Turns out she has successfully upgraded the holograms, and they will even now pass bioscans. They're so realistic, they don't know they're holograms. And had she watched the Moriarty episode of TNG, she'd know what a bad idea that is.
Oh, yes. I had that in my notes as well. This is very much like that when Geordi tells the computer to, he doesn't say to create a villain, but it's like create a puzzle or something that can beat Data.
Yeah.
And whoops. And it was kind of the same here. It's like she followed sort of the letter of the plan, but she didn't think about, well, maybe that's dangerous. If they're not actually self-aware, then we might be in a little bit of trouble.
Now the Doctor and Janeway are at the door of the holodeck asking to be let in. Rok says they can't turn off the holograms because the AI is still calibrating.
Oh, that AI. Always trouble.
So they hide the holograms and chat with Janeway, who's quite surprised to see the Protostar bridge.
I don't think they hid the holograms. I think that they hid and let the holograms interact.
Oh.
Because there's the one scene when Janeway's talking to Gwyn, and then she turns and she's talking to Zero or Dal, and Gwyn glitches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Janeway's walking in here and they are hiding badly behind the consoles and things, it's like, surely you could see them. There
was a point where Janeway kind of looked to the side, and I thought she did see them.
Yes, exactly. That's in my notes. There's a look from Janeway. And did she actually see them? And did she figure out, I'm going to let them get up to whatever they're doing because it's going to be something that I can't do, but maybe can help the situation?
Maybe. I mean, it's entirely possible because that's what she's seen, right? And maybe she's getting some secret messages from someone telling her to trust them.
Oh.
But I also thought maybe what she did was she looked at the armband that Gwen was wearing, because right in that moment, she was talking about, saving Gwen and getting her back into this time phase or whatever. So I did think maybe that's all that was. But it just seemed really obvious that those other characters weren't hiding because they're hiding behind things that have holes in them.
Right.
So, yeah, that was weird. But it was also a little bit cartoonish, and sometimes the show can do that.
Yeah.
Can be cartoony.
Janeway has come to tell them that none of this was their fault, and Starfleet is going to fix it. But really, it pretty much is all their fault.
Yeah.
And there's no plan to fix it.
No.
Janeway says the new orders are to return Voyager to Earth, but she says faith is never futile, which translates to, we have no plan and no idea what to do.
Right. But have faith. Resistance is futile, but not faith.
Well, not according to data. Resistance is not futile. After the Doc and Janeway leave, the team start to wonder how they're going to tell themselves apart from the holograms.
Should have thought of that sooner.
Yeah. Rok says, we can't. The holograms are identical in every way. It is reinforced of why this is not a good idea, because the holograms start to plan how they're going to get onto the Infinity, and then lock the real crew in the holodeck and head off to carry out the plan. Rok points out, unfortunately, the holograms will go poof if they leave Voyager, so this isn't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Rok, using a little good old-fashioned brute force, gets them out of the holodeck, and we go into a chase sequence where the different versions of the crew are chasing each other around the ship. And number one, no one is sure who's a hologram or not.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, apparently nobody on the crew is anywhere to be seen.
Except Majel. But otherwise, yeah, we don't see anybody else. There's the one scene where the Doctor sees Murf twice, but he just shrugs and gets in the turbolift.
Because Murf's so weird.
Yeah.
During the chase, Zero runs into Majel, and she tries to chat with Zero. But ultimately, she does realize that something suspicious is going on.
Except she doesn't see the other Zero walk by. That she misses, but she does know there's something up, yeah.
Rok-Tahk, who's still in the holodeck, actually forges an alliance with her holographic duplicate, and they work together to fix the problem. This was so on brand for Rok. It was perfect. The two of them were actually excited to work together.
Yeah, that was cute.
And now we end up back at the chase we saw at the beginning. And the real Gwyn jumps in to save Dal with the use of a fire extinguisher, which I think we saw a couple of times in Deep Space Nine.
We did. It wasn't quite the same as this one, though.
But this just ends up in a standoff, with all of them pointing phasers at each other. This does raise the question of why they're allowed to have weapons.
Yeah. They're cadets. They're not even officially in Starfleet.
Thinking about it, aliens are always taking people over, attempting to destroy the ship.
Which is a good reason for them to not have guns.
Well, so it may not be good procedure, but I assume they don't go beyond stun.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They're maybe only on the lowest setting.
Well, Sanity arrives in the form of two Rok-Tahks. They've made a plan to disrupt the ship's holomatrix, which will reboot the characters. And the rebooted versions of the crew won't remember the plan to steal the Infinity. So we reset everything, which makes the Doctor disappear briefly.
Although he has his own holo emitter, so I don't understand why he disappeared.
Yeah, why would he be tied into the ship's holo matrix? Okay, he was in medical, so maybe he's in medical, he's using the holo emitters there. He doesn't actually have to use his mobile emitter.
Saves power or something, maybe?
Yeah.
The mobile emitter was on the charger.
Yes. The young crew is now running towards the Infinity, but gets stopped by the rebooted Doctor, who isn't sure whether he's tutored them today or quite what's going on. You'd think he'd have that in short-term storage.
Well, I think he got wiped from the cache.
Oh, he had right caching turned on. Yeah, that can end up badly. Majel now steps in and distracts the Doctor, asking him about vocal lessons and his love of opera, which is very helpful. She also does a little telepathic flirting with Zero, which really flusters them.
Yeah, that was cute. Zero's like, oh.
Although, do Vulcans really flirt? Thinking about it from a Vulcan perspective, that wasn't flirting. Vulcans would class this as just a case of her wishing to improve her personal efficiency by an enhanced working relationship with Zero.
Sure.
The crew now make it to the hangar, just as Infinity is launched. All seems lost, but Gwyn has a quick idea to do an emergency transport over to the Infinity and mask the signal.
This is quite a hand wave. I mean, I feel like we knew that's what would happen. They would beam over, but the, last minute mask of the signal. I mean, come on.
That's a good point.
Yeah. A little bit of a hand wave.
Well, Maybe they weren't paying close attention to the ship because they'd
As
already
usual.
checked that there was nobody on it. There was, no reason to be looking for this. Maybe this is something they'd find going back through the logs going, was there an emergency transport?
Yeah. It's kind of like, why would the computer not notice that suddenly there were double the number of the Prodigy crew kids and warn security that, we went from 800 to 805 people on the ship. We need some alerts.
As the Infinity flies towards the blue sun, Janeway looks kind of deflated.
Yeah, when this happens, the dumbest line of the whole season so far comes from Janeway when she says, "It's fitting. Chakotay always loved a blue sun." Really?
On the Infinity, the crew take control of the ship, enable the cloak, all as the Prodigy theme plays. Again, great use of music.
Yeah, I like that little touch. Of course, I always love it when they do that, when they sneak the theme in.
Oh, yeah. Rok tells them the hologram doubles should be coming back online, but she also says there's a tiny irregularity, but I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, it's not fine.
And we see back on Voyager, the characters have rebooted, but the wrong personalities are in the wrong body.
Oops.
Zero is in Dal, and Jankum is in Rok, and Murf is in Gwyn. Uh-oh. The end.
That was a very cute ending. I didn't expect that.
Yes, it was pretty funny.
So let's talk about what stood out for us in the 2 episodes. What do you have?
I think really my standouts all come from the second episode.
Okay.
I really liked how this episode is showing them as almost a cohesive crew. They're sort of almost a proto-crew. They're on the cusp of all working together as almost a Starfleet crew in the classic Star Trek mold. Each of their skills is complementing the other.
Yeah, if we think about what Mahi, our, at the time, 6 and 7-year-old correspondent, what she liked, she talked quite a bit about teamwork. And she would often say, teamwork makes the dream work, right? But that was something that really kind of grew through the whole season.
Yes.
And then they started off this season all in separate storylines and separate, kind of spread out.
Yes.
And they clearly were all floundering. And now they've come back together and we've rebuilt that team. And that's almost like, that's their comfort zone. But of course, you don't grow in your comfort zone generally. So they probably should have found a way to take advantage of those opportunities they were getting when they were on different teams and on different tracks. But they do seem happier when they're together.
But I think what's making them grow here is they have to complete this mission. They've got to save the Protostar. They've got to save Gwyn.
Yeah, but they're also kind of creating their missions.
Yeah.
Going into the wormhole is what created this. So their little bit of chaos is also creating the missions for them.
Yeah. They're creating their own missions by causing chaos behind them.
Right.
Good point there. I think the other thing that stood out just because I thought it was really funny was the way the others all ended up as rivals in the big chase between the real crew and the hologram, except Rok was just so happy to work with herself.
Yeah, she was like, oh, a new friend.
Right, exactly. I did like that. And the standout, again, just beautiful animation.
Yeah.
The blue sun and the Infinity being cast into the sun. Again, love the animation in this show.
Okay, yep.
And I think maybe the last thing is this big reveal of the Vulcan Majel now stepping up to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Realizing that there's probably Zero isn't chaos. There's probably a reason for this. And she is going to help them. Yeah.
One of the things that stood out for me was that we are calling back to that terrible episode Tattoo.
Yeah. I just put that out of my mind.
Yeah. Of all the things you're going to call back to, that I just don't think was necessarily the best.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll do it to try to, right the wrongs of the past. But there's some pretty crappy stuff that happens in that episode that I don't think Star Trek should be proud of.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to listen to our critique of that one, you can. It's in the ReBingeIt feed or also in the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager feed. But just not one of the great things I'm really happy to see come back.
Yeah.
I did think at the beginning of the first episode, the interviews they were doing, trying to get information about what happened on the Infinity, I did think that was fun. It does highlight the question about why they're trying to let Murf into Starfleet when they can't communicate with him. I'm not sure that makes any sense.
True. But maybe they're working on the principle of we'll figure him out eventually.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Oh, I mentioned before that I'm surprised the wormhole is off the table already.
Yeah.
And we talked about Rok-Tahk and the connection to Geordi creating Moriarty. Oh, I did like and took note of Jankum saying impogster instead of imposter.
Jankum does have some of the best dialogue.
He absolutely does. He wasn't as funny in these 2 episodes as he was in the previous ones, but he was still funny. I'm definitely noticing how little we use Janeway. I mean, hologram Janeway was more involved with the crew and more a part of everything. Whereas here, the crew kind of purposely avoids her because, she's not working with them because she's the real Janeway. But she's been, I would say, like a little bit bland in these episodes so far, and she's kind of getting stepped on by the Prodigy crew, just getting away with everything. And then also Jellicoe sort of telling her what to do. And this, to me, this is not the Janeway that we know. We're only into season 2 so far in our rewatch. And it's been a long time since I've seen the original Voyager, so I don't remember everything. But Janeway is super bold. She's reckless, as we have talked about before. And I get it. You get a little bit less reckless as you get older, but she's kind of a doormat here. I don't like the way they're using her. So hopefully we sort of pick up a little bit with Janeway.
Yeah, she's a little bit too much by the book. Yeah.
And even she would let them, in the previous season, she would let those characters talk about her being too emotional and she never fought back. And I never bought that either. Yeah. So it's almost like the hologram version of Janeway was the more interesting version. It's like, come on, just bring her back to who Janeway is. Right. Because that character is great.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, let's go to Speculation Corner. I have a couple of things. Do you have anything in Speculation Corner?
Well, the big thing we have to talk about is when they were saying Chakotay and Murf was basically saying no.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with this is pointing to the young Vindicator.
I do think that's the coolest guess, and I wish that was it. Unfortunately, I've had a spoiler because this is the trouble you get into on social media. I've tried to avoid everything as much as I can, but now I know what they're going to come up against eventually.
You've given me the spoiler that it isn't the Vindicator by saying that.
Well, I think what I was going to say was I think there might be more than one character involved here. And I know one, but I think there's still a chance that there's another one involved as well, which could either be Chakotay or the young Vindicator or somebody else.
Chakotay would be too easy.
Yeah, I do think Chakotay is a little bit easy, but I don't, they did throw that Chaumuzi thing in there to confuse us, which is good. Go ahead and confuse us. That makes it more interesting.
Hey, I'm all in favor of that.
But I'm not going to guess about that because I know one thing that's coming. One thing I wrote down about it is that, you know how Murf evolved in the last season, right? He was the snail, and then he evolved to the little character he is now. I wondered is he going to continue evolving? Because after watching that Traveler episode last night, I was like, I wonder if Murf evolves into a Traveler.
Oh.
Because he does kind of look like the guy a little bit.
Oh.
I might be reaching.
That's a pretty good one. It would be interesting if that is going to be a theme, though, of the idea would be Murf would be evolving.
Would keep evolving,
each season.
I bet he will. Did you have anything else?
There is a concern, though, that now this lot have a time-traveling cloaking ship.
Yeah.
They could probably destroy the universe as we know it.
Gosh, right?
By accident.
I mean, that is possible. I've had this thought in my speculating that because it's a little bit tough for them to sort of keep them within a Starfleet ship and have them operating so independently like they have been. And so I'm wondering if they're going to somehow end up completely separated again from everything.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think they would do it in the Infinity because even though it cloaks and has some time travel ability, it's not quite as cool as the Protostar. So I don't know if we'll somehow end up back with a Protostar and they'll again get separated. Maybe they'll go off in a different timeline or to a different parallel or something. Because I'm not sure that they can sort of keep this up where they're sort of in Starfleet and not, and being on a Starfleet ship. You know what I mean?
We'd have to either go completely Starfleet or go in a different direction.
Yeah, right. And I wonder if they'll make, like they did at the end of season 1, they'll make some big sacrifice that ends up putting them somewhere else where they're on their own again.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Any other speculation? That was all that I wrote down.
No, I think that wraps it up.
All right, then let's play Jeff X-Force 11's feedback, and then we'll do rating.
Well, hello, Star Trek fans. It's Jeff, X-Force 11, leaving my feedback about Prodigy, Observer's Paradox, and Imposter Syndrome. So, both of these episodes were really fun. I love the crew kind of talking their way through what happened and their reasoning behind stuff, and trying to figure out Murf's language was a big fun part of the episode, and involving the whale there in Cetacean Ops was a lot of fun. And I just really appreciated having all of our crew together again. And we get this tie back to Chakotay with the stone and the world that we just recently talked about in the Voyager rewatch.
Yes, we did.
And I just think it's really, really cool to kind of look at things this way. And I really liked Imposter Syndrome of having holograms that are so real that they think they're real and you can't tell the difference. That was just a fun thing. And then having them in the end have their personality switched around was just hilarious. I'm just really loving this season of how fun the stories are and yet still having high stakes. Love it. Love hearing y'all talk about it. X-Force is out.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I agree. These two episodes were fun. The little switcheroo at the end with putting them in the different bodies, or the sort of parent trap thing, that is quite funny.
And the eavesdropping whale.
And the eavesdropping whale, yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of cute parts. It was entertaining. There wasn't a lot of movement in the story overall, but still pretty fun, these two episodes. Let's go then to rating. So what is the score you would give Observer's Paradox and then Imposter Syndrome?
Okay. A 9 and a 10.
We dropped from 10 to 9.
Yes.
Didn't get enough from Observer's Paradox to be a 10?
No, we did not. I didn't think there was enough body to the episode, whereas Imposter Syndrome, I thought was great.
Yeah.
I thought it hit all the right notes. I mean, it was funny. I think we saw the great characteristics of the crew. I felt it was a solid episode. The other one, not so much.
But you still gave it a 9.
Yeah.
I think it's a 1-point deduction for Chalmuzi.
Well, I could probably give it a few more for that, but,
Maybe. Well, yeah, I enjoyed both episodes. I agree. I think the first episode is maybe a 7.9, and then the second episode I would give an 8. So yeah, I agree.
Okay. That's probably equivalent on my rating scale.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Okay, I think that wraps it up for episodes 5 and 6. So come back next time for episodes 7 and 8 as we're nearing the middle of the season.
Indeed.
And if we learn anything exciting about Star Trek or Star Trek Prodigy, we will be sure to share it the next time we record. And also, if we have any good cosplay costumes, we can share some pictures of those. So in the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any of the episodes of Prodigy, you can email us at RebingeIt@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on the socials. We're on Threads, the thing that used to be called Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, all at RebingeIt. And of course, there is the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on Star Trek Prodigy, a ReBinge It podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me. And listen to Janeway.
And don't be a Borg.